Welcome back to Under Baobab Skies. Tonight, we travel to the kingdom of Dahomey, also known as the Fon or Aja people. Located in what is now the southern part of Benin and a little piece of Nigeria. This kingdom was not just a place of bustling markets and grand ceremonies. It was a realm where the everyday life of its people, from farmers to warriors, was interwoven with a deep connection to their history and traditions. The rhythm of life here wasn't carried only by trade and ritual, but also by war, sacrifice, and power. Their history echoes with the sounds of blacksmiths working late into the night, crafting tools and weapons that would shape destinies. It speaks of full-throated praise songs from griots and court singers who kept the memories of their ancestors alive, and of the slow, steady thrum of drums that reverberated through villages and battle camps alike. But who are we? Under Baobab Skies, we are travelers, adventurers, dreamers, and thinkers, all drawn together by our shared fascination with Africa's rich past. Every week, we come together to explore a different African kingdom, uncovering the intricacies of their societies, their art, their beliefs, and their impact on the world. Before we dive deeper into this captivating realm, let's take a moment to appreciate the beauty of our city. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine the humid air of the Gulf of Guinea, heavy with the smell of palm oil and wood smoke. A faint drumbeat travels across the night, while the voices of griots and court singers weave praises of kings and warriors. Beneath the tall silhouettes of royal palaces, a kingdom forged its destiny, not through quiet farming alone, but through the sharp edge of weapons, the sound of marching regiments, and the sacred rituals that bound its people to their rulers and ancestors. Here, in the land of Dahomey, strength and survival were not simply choices, they were necessities. For every child born, the stories of warriors awaited. For every soldier, the weight of sacrifice pressed close. For every queen and king, power came wrapped in ceremony and blood. Yet, alongside this harshness, there was beauty, the shimmer of elaborate beadwork, the harmony of royal dancers, and the voices of women who shaped the battlefield as fiercely as men. As we journey tonight, we will walk through the dusty barracks of foot soldiers who carried the weight of the kingdom's ambitions. We will meet Queen Hangbi, whose legacy opened the path for the famed women warriors of Dahomey. We will pause in the heart of the annual customs, where drums thundered in ritual processions that were equal parts devotion and politics. And we will step into the royal court, where art, intrigue, and ceremony shaped the destiny of a nation remembered in both awe and fear. And so, beneath the protective gaze of the baobab trees, we gather. These ancient giants of the savannah stand as silent witnesses to the unfolding drama of our stories, reminding us of the enduring spirit of Africa and its people. Let's take a moment to welcome new members of our community. Your presence enriches our storytelling circle. If you're joining us for the first time, know that you are stepping into a vibrant community of learners and sharers. Together, we are bridging the gaps in history and celebrating the beauty of our African past. Before we continue, I want to introduce you to the amazing patrons who support this show. You are part of an incredible community that brings these stories to life. Your belief in our work means the world to us. Our journey takes us to the shores of the Atlantic Ocean, where the mighty kingdom of Dahomey thrived. Imagine the soft thud of canoes touching down on sandy beaches, carrying not just goods and people, but tales of bravery and adventure. Life here wasn't just about the harvest or the hunt. It was also about exploration and the daring feats of those who ventured into the unknown. In this episode, we'll explore the lesser-known aspects of Dahomey's history, venturing beyond the well-trodden paths of its warrior queens and legendary armies. will uncover stories of exploration, diplomacy, and daily life, revealing a more complete picture of this fascinating kingdom. Join me as we embark on this enlightening adventure, where every wave crashing on the shore echoes with stories waiting to be uncovered. Let the drums of Dahomey guide us as we continue our journey under baobab skies. Today, we travel to the great kingdoms of Africa, following the footsteps of legendary warriors to discover how they built their armies, fought their battles, and won their victories. And now, let's begin our journey to Dahomey. By the end of this part, you'll understand what it truly meant to live and die as a soldier in Dahomey, where the line between honor and hardship was as thin as the blade of a spear. The barracks of Dahomey were not places of ease. They were training grounds where boys became men, and men became soldiers of the king. From the earliest hours of dawn, the clang of weapons and the bark of commands filled the air. Training was relentless, not only to sharpen physical strength, but also to instill loyalty so absolute that hesitation became unthinkable. To falter in battle was to dishonor the king, the ancestors, and the regiment. To fall in battle was seen as the greatest honor that could be bestowed upon a warrior, a glorious sacrifice in service to the throne. Our story begins in the 17th century. Our king, King Dahomey, is eager to make his mark on the world and expand his kingdom. So he calls for brave warriors to join his army. Men from all over West Africa come to serve under the banner of Dahomey. The kingdom is known for its fierce warriors and strategic brilliance, and many are eager to prove themselves in battle. As a new recruit, life was structured around rigorous training and discipline. At 15 years old, our protagonist had already lived a hard life, but he dreamed of a better future. Enlisting in the Royal Army was his ticket out of obscurity and into a world of adventure and opportunity. Now standing before King Dahomey, he was ready to begin his new life as a soldier. The king surveyed his new recruits, looking for potential. He saw bravery in some faces, ambition in others. And in one young man, he saw something special, a spark that hinted at greatness. This young man was our protagonist, and the king took notice of him, seeing in him the potential for leadership and valor. He singled out our protagonist, offering him a place by his side. It was an honor and a responsibility, and our protagonist was eager to prove himself worthy. The journey from recruit to elite soldier was long and arduous, demanding physical prowess, mental fortitude, and unwavering commitment. Under the watchful eyes of experienced sergeants, the recruits learned the art of war, mastering the use of weapons, honing their fighting skills, and understanding the intricacies of battle. They drilled day and night, their bodies becoming instruments of war, their movements precise and efficient. The sergeants pushed them to their limits, knowing that only the strongest and most disciplined would survive the rigors of combat. But training was only one part of the equation. Equally important was instilling the values and traditions of the Dahomey army. Loyalty to the king, respect for elders, and courage in the face of adversity were not just words, they were commandments, to be followed without question. The soldiers were taught to think as one, to fight as one, and to die if necessary, as one. They were not merely soldiers, they were an extension of the king's will, and they were expected to embody his vision and values in every aspect of their being. Years passed, and our protagonist, once a wide-eyed recruit, now stood tall and confident as a seasoned soldier by the king's side. He had proven himself in countless battles, his name echoing with tales of valor and victory. Yet, despite his accomplishments, he never forgot the grueling journey that brought him here. He remembered the early mornings spent honing his skills, the sweat and blood, the injuries and the triumphs. These memories were not just reminders of his past, they were the foundations of his present, shaping his character and fueling his determination. He looked back at the raw recruits, seeing in them a reflection of his younger self. He knew the road ahead would be tough, but he also knew that these men were capable of greatness. With a mix of authority and empathy, he guided them, sharing his knowledge and experience to help them navigate the challenges that lay ahead. The barracks of Dahomey were not just a place for training. They were a crucible where boys turned into men and ordinary men into soldiers of the king. It was here that they shed their fears, embraced their strengths, and became the backbone of one of the fiercest armies in all of Africa. Under the blazing sun of West Africa, our protagonist led his fellow soldiers on countless missions. Battles were not infrequent occurrences, but rather a regular part of life. Their enemies, various local tribes and colonial powers, each presenting unique challenges and threats to the kingdom. Each battle was a test of strategy, endurance, and loyalty. Victories were celebrated with feasts and songs, while defeats were met with somber rituals and introspection. Through it all, our protagonist stood firm, his loyalty to the king and his comrades unwavering. His bravery in the face of danger inspired his men, and his strategic mind often turned the tide of battle in their favor. Yet, even in the midst of conflict, there were moments of levity and camaraderie. Around campfires at night, soldiers shared stories of their exploits, their laughter echoing through the darkness. They sang songs of their homeland, keeping alive the traditions and culture that bound them together. They formed bonds of brotherhood, forged in the fires of battle and tempered by the shared hardships and triumphs. For these men, being a soldier was more than a duty. It was a way of life. As time went on, our protagonist rose through the ranks, his contributions to the army not going unnoticed. He was a natural leader, commanding respect and inspiring confidence in those under his command. His rise culminated in his appointment as the king's most trusted advisor on matters of war, a testament to his strategic acumen and unwavering loyalty. Now standing at the king's right hand, he played a pivotal role in shaping the kingdom's destiny, guiding his king to victories that expanded the borders of Dahomey and solidified its reputation as a formidable power in the region. Despite his elevated status, he never forgot his roots. The years spent in the barracks, the sweat, the blood, the camaraderie. He remained a soldier at heart, ready to lead his men into battle whenever duty called. His story was a testament to the power of dedication, hard work, and an unwavering commitment to duty. He was living proof that in the kingdom of Dahomey, a commoner could rise to become a legend. But life as a foot soldier was far from the romantic notion many might have. It was a harsh, unforgiving existence marked by constant struggle and sacrifice. Imagine yourself in the 18th century, walking barefoot through dense foliage, the humid air clinging to your skin. You are a foot soldier, and your day begins with the first rays of sunlight filtering through the trees. Your bare feet tread on uneven terrain, the soft earth yielding to reveal treacherous roots and stones. The weight of your equipment, though essential for survival, seems to grow heavier with each step. You move in formation with your comrades, your steps a rhythmic cadence that echoes through the silent jungle. The air is heavy with the scent of damp earth and decaying vegetation, a stark reminder of the circle of life and death that surrounds you. Your muscles ache, not from exertion, but from the constant battle against the elements. Sleep is fitful, with dreams of home and hearth offering a brief escape from this unforgiving reality. Food is scarce, and hunger gnaws at your stomach, a constant companion on this arduous journey. Days bleed into one another, marked by the relentless march forward, the hope of reaching a destination, a glimmer in the distance that never seems to materialize. The enemy is unseen, lurking in the shadows of the trees, striking unexpectedly. Fear is a constant companion, urging you to push on, to keep moving until the threat of conflict recedes into the whispers of the wind. You are not merely marching, you are surviving. Each step is a testament to your endurance, each breath a victory over despair. The line between glory and hardship is as thin as the blade of your spear, as fragile as your own humanity. You are a foot soldier, and this is your story. If the long days of training and marching wore the body down, it was ritual discipline that pressed upon the spirit. In Dahomey, a soldier's life was wrapped not only in drills and weapons, but in ceremonies that constantly reminded him of his place beneath the king and the gods. Morning began not simply with exercise, but with ritual acknowledgement. Soldiers knelt before shrines, offered libations, and called upon ancestors for strength. In the eyes of the kingdom, a regiment was not merely an army, it was a spiritual force. This meant that every command carried the weight of religion, and every battle was framed as a sacred duty. To disobey the king was not only treason, it was a sin against the ancestors. This heavy atmosphere of religion seeped into every aspect of the soldier's existence. Each movement, each gesture was imbued with meaning. It wasn't just a march, it was a procession of men dedicated to the divine order of things. And within this context, the very air they breathed was charged with expectation. Every step echoed with the footsteps of past warriors. Every glance held the solemnity of men who knew they were part of something much larger than themselves. It was a profound feeling that settled upon their shoulders like a weighty cloak, a constant reminder of the legacy they were upholding. For these men weren't just fighting for earthly conquest, they were engaged in a spiritual ballet, a dance with destiny where the steps had been set long before they were born. Their camps weren't just places of refuge. They were sanctuaries where the connection to the spiritual realm was kept alive. The rituals didn't end with the setting sun. Evenings were filled with drumming, dancing, and the telling of tales, each story weaving a new thread into the tapestry of their shared purpose. As the flames of the evening fires danced, so did the spirits of their forefathers, their presence a tangible force within the circle of flickering light. The soldiers weren't merely resting. They were reconnecting with the invisible threads that bound them to their past, ensuring that the legacy of courage and duty was kept alive with each passing generation. And yet, beneath this rhythm of chants and sacrifices lay the gnawing reality of hunger. Campaigns stretched across the vast forests and savannas of Africa, where the bounty of civilization gave way to the unforgiving scarcity of the wild. Rations were thin, barely enough to sustain the arduous marches and the physical exertion demanded by their disciplined regime. Days turned into weeks, and the monotonous diet of maize, porridge, and smoked meat became a constant companion, a grim reminder of the cost of their commitment. Some resorted to the bitter comfort of palm wine, while others dug the bitter roots from the forest floor, trying to stave off the gnawing emptiness. But hunger isn't just a physical affliction. It's a relentless tormentor that preys on the mind, turning the smallest sense into a torture. The smell of cooking in distant villages was like a cruel jest, a mocking reminder of the simple pleasures they'd been denied. Each aromatic waft was a tiny stab, awakening memories of home and hearth, of hearths they might never see again. It was a haunting symphony of deprivation played on the strings of their longing, a melody of hunger that echoed through the silent nights, mingling with the distant drums of war. The spectre of death also loomed large, not only in the dangers of the battlefield, but in the eerie rituals of their own camp. Within the grand ceremonies of Dahomey, the spilling of blood was a binding act. It reaffirmed the king's power and secured the prosperity of the kingdom. But it was a power that could be claimed in more ways than one. Whispers slithered through the barracks, tales of comrades chosen not for valor but for sacrifice. It was a grim lottery, a roll of the dice with death as the ultimate stake. Sleep became a treacherous companion, for dreams were filled with visions of the altar, with the rhythmic thud of the executioner's fetish looming like a second heartbeat. A deep sense of dread permeated the ranks, a chilling premonition that tomorrow's muster might bring not just the clash of arms, but the chill touch of the executioner's blade. Discipline was their shield against this ever-present terror, a bulwark that kept the chaos of fear at bay. Yet even shields have their limits, and the soldiers of Dahomey were all too aware of the day when their own number might be called. This pervasive anxiety was more than a mere shadow hanging over their heads. It was a constant companion that marched alongside them, a spectre that whispered doubts in their ears, a spectre that mirrored their own mortality back at them. It was the embodiment of the terrible truth that in the grand hierarchy of the kingdom, they were expendable pieces, pawns in a game where the rules were written in blood and sacrifice. As night fell and the fire crackled softly, casting flickering shadows on the assembled men, it became a beacon not just of warmth, but of shared vulnerability. Around its dancing flames, they exchanged stories of their lives. Before the drums of war had summoned them to the king's cause, these moments were more than just diversions from the harsh realities of their existence. They were anchors to a world they might never return to, a world of laughter and light that stood in stark contrast to the somber present. For a brief while, they could shed the weight of their circumstances, if only in their memories. These flickering flames became the stage where the drama of their lives played out, a silent film strip of moments that defined who they once were and who they might yet become. Beneath the canopy of stars, they bared their souls, finding solace in the shared narratives of their past, drawing strength from the echoes of laughter that mingled with the crackle of the fire. And then there was the coming-of-age ceremony. For young men of Dahomey, it wasn't just a rite of passage. It was a brush with mortality. Initiates were stripped bare, not just physically, but emotionally and spiritually. It was a cathartic experience that purged them of their former selves and forged a new identity in its place. Blood was a common element in these rites, symbolizing the shedding of the old self and the rebirth of a warrior. Ritual scarification wasn't just about aesthetics or tribal affiliation. It was a form of self-definition, a declaration to the world and to self that one was ready to face the world's challenges, including the most daunting, the possibility of death. But beneath this display of resilience lay a deeper, more complex truth. These young men weren't just asserting their manhood, they were confronting the stark realities of their existence, acknowledging the fragility of life and the inevitability of death. In a society where honor and duty were paramount, this acceptance wasn't a sign of defeat, but a testament to their strength. By embracing the full spectrum of human experience, they were preparing themselves not just for the trials of war, but for the complexities of life. These ceremonies were a microcosm of the larger societal structure. In the eyes of the kingdom, a regiment wasn't just an army, it was a microcosm of the kingdom itself, mirroring its values, its beliefs, and its unwavering commitment to tradition. What happened in the initiation ceremony echoed in the larger society, where the king's power was reaffirmed, where the spirits of the ancestors were honored, and where the boundaries between life and death were not just acknowledged, but celebrated. It was a holistic approach that wove the fabric of the kingdom, making each thread, each custom and ritual an integral part of a grand design. And yet, through all this, discipline held. The iron will of commanders, the spiritual weight of ceremonies, and the fear of dishonoring both king and ancestor kept regiments bound together. To falter was to risk shame that would echo for generations. And so the soldiers endured, hungry, afraid, but unbroken, living vessels of a kingdom that demanded everything from them. The men and women of Dahomey's regiments endured. They had no other choice. But endurance was not only survival, it was transformation. Soldiers learned to bend their bodies and spirits to the demands of endless campaigns. Feet hardened against rocky paths, shoulders grew accustomed to the bite of shields, and eyes sharpened in the dark, reading danger from the smallest movements in the bush. This resilience was not passive. It was active, creative, and deeply cultural. Soldiers sang as they marched, chants of ancestors, songs of encouragement, even mockery aimed at their rivals. The rhythm of those songs kept hunger at bay and lifted weary legs step after step. In the same way, jokes and laughter flickered even in the harshest camps, reminding warriors that beyond the pain there was still humanity. Adaptation was also practical. Soldiers turned palm fronds into bedding, fashioned rain shields from hides, and learned to eat what the land offered: bitter leaves, wild fruits, even insects. When desperation pressed hardest, they became masters of improvisation, transforming scarcity into survival. The army itself trained men and women to live as a collective, each watching for the other, each carrying not only spears but the burden of community. And so, while fear and hunger gnawed at them, endurance became their defining quality. The soldiers of Dahomey carried within them a spirit shaped by discipline, sharpened by hardship, and bound by loyalty to their king and ancestors. Their suffering forged a resilience so deep that even in the face of impossible demands, they stood unbroken. Let's pause here for a moment. The fire crackles softly, and we rest beneath the stars. But now we must return to the story. The year is 1892, and a chill wind sweeps across the plains of Adop. At the heart of this West African kingdom, King Bahanzin surveys his land with growing unease. For months, French agents have been stirring unrest among his neighbors, fanning old rivalries into flames. Now war drums beat in the distance, and soon the sky will be filled with the cries of Kente, the vengeful spirits of battle. As his warriors prepare for yet another campaign, Benassin knows this time the stakes are higher. If he falters, his dynasty may crumble. So he turns to his most trusted general, General Zama. His gaze is unwavering. "We will fight," he says, "and we will not yield." And so the army of Dahomey prepares for war. Warriors young and old, male and female, they heed the call, each knowing their role in this intricate dance of violence. Among them is a young recruit, Kofi, barely a man, yet his spirit burns with the courage of his ancestors. As he joins the ranks, he hears the echoes of past victories, and defeats the triumphs and tragedies that have shaped his people. Each step he takes is a step into history. Before him lie the paths of heroes and martyrs, and he walks on, eager to prove himself worthy. Beside him is Akua, her eyes sharp, her movements fluid, a seasoned warrior ready to face any challenge. She, too, feels the weight of tradition, the legacy of female warriors that have made Dahomey a force to be reckoned with. Together, Kofi and Koko embody the spirit of the Dahomey army, a blend of youthful exuberance and seasoned wisdom, all united under the banner of an unrelenting resistance. Now, as the sun rises, bathing the landscape in hues of red and gold, the army of Dahomey sets out. They march with precision, their steps echoing the heartbeat of their kingdom. Among them, Coca and Coco, their faces painted with the symbols of their loyalty, move with the grace of dancers, yet their gazes are fixed, their resolve unbending. Theirs is a dance of war, a ballet of bloodshed, and they are its devoted performers. As they advance, the sounds of war fill the air. The rhythmic pounding of drums, the haunting calls of the hunters, the clash of steel on steel. These are the music and poetry of their existence, a language older than words, a testament to their unbreakable spirit. The trees part before them, revealing a clearing where the enemy awaits. There is no fear in their hearts, only the cold focus of warriors ready to do their duty. With spears raised, they face the rising sun, a wall of humanity against the encroaching darkness. In the heart of the battle, General Sam leads the charge. His every move a calculated risk, his every strike a lesson in strategy. Beside him, Coco fights with the fury of a lioness, her blade a blur of righteous anger. As the day wears on, the clearing becomes a whirlwind of activity. Men fall on both sides, their screams mingling with the cries of the wounded. The air grows thick with the metallic scent of blood, the taste of courage. Amidst the chaos, Coco moves like a phantom, appearing and disappearing at will, her presence felt in every thrust of her spear. She is a whirlwind of controlled violence, a testament to the power of a disciplined mind and an unyielding spirit. Through it all, General Zuma remains steadfast, his gaze sweeping across the battlefield, assessing, adapting, overcoming. Each decision he makes affects the lives of countless men and women. Yet he hesitates not, for he carries the hopes and dreams of an entire nation on his shoulders. As the sun begins its slow descent, casting long shadows across the clearing, the tide of battle turns. With one final surge, the Dahomeyan army breaks through the enemy lines, driving them back, forcing them to flee. Victory is theirs, hard-won and costly, but a victory nonetheless. Amidst the cheers of his troops, General Yama surveys the battlefield. The day is theirs, but the cost of that victory weighs heavily on him. Each fallen soldier is a reminder of the fragility of life. Each survivor a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. He sees Coco amidst the carnage, her face streaked with dirt and sweat, her clothes torn and tattered, yet her spirit unbroken. In her, he sees the strength of the army, the indomitable will of the Dahomeyan people. The battle is over, but the war is far from won. They have triumphed today, but tomorrow brings new challenges, new battles to fight. Yet, as General Zama looks out at the horizon, he sees not just the hardships that lie ahead, but also the courage, the resilience, and the unbending spirit of his people. He sees the strength in their unity, the power in their traditions, and the unwavering determination in their eyes. He knows that as long as they stand together, as long as they carry the memory of their ancestors in their hearts, they can endure anything. For the soldiers of Dahomey, war is not just a clash of armies, it's a test of endurance. It's a trial by fire that forges their bodies and spirits into instruments of unrelenting resistance. Day after day, they face the enemy, not just on the battlefield, but in their own minds. They confront the gnawing pangs of hunger, the whispers of despair, and the heavy mantle of fear. Through it all, they discover reserves of strength they never knew they possessed. They learn to read the subtle signs of the bush, to find sustenance where others see only arid wastelands, and to transform fear into a shield against the horrors of war. Each scar they bear, Each ache they endure becomes a badge of honor, a testament to their unbending will. In the harsh crucible of war, they forge themselves anew, emerging as vessels of endurance, embodiments of their kingdom's indomitable spirit. They are the soldiers of Dahomey, and their story is a hymn to the human spirit's capacity to not just survive, but to thrive in the face of overwhelming odds. If the desert carved the Berber endurance, the forests of Dahomey forged another legend, one of women who stood shoulder to shoulder with kings. At the heart of this tale is Queen Hangby, a figure who slips between myth and history, whispered about in fireside stories and sung about in secret. Some say that when King Akbar died, it was Hangby who should have taken the throne. Others argue that it was her younger brother, Tegbing, who was the rightful heir. But everyone agrees that the succession crisis sparked by Akbar's death in 1708 irrevocably altered the course of Dahomeyan history. We know that Akbar was childless, but when he died unexpectedly, two contenders emerged, both women. The first was Tegbeni, the youngest of their father's wives and Akbar's half-sister. She had borne the king two daughters, princesses who would be queen mothers someday. But tradition seemed to favor Hangby, Akbar's twin and the mother of the heir apparent. The dead king's eldest son was only 12, too young to rule. So the throne sat empty as rival factions backed their candidate. And if history has been kind to anyone involved, it has been to Hangby, whose supporters claim she took the throne with the backing of powerful nobles and the approval of the people. Her detractors tell a different story, insisting that she seized power illegally and held it against her rivals until her death. What is certain is that Hangby reigned for 8 years, raising an army so formidable that it has echoed down the ages. History tells us little about her life before the crown, but the choices she made as sovereign reveal much about her character. For in those years, the kingdom of Dahomey sharpened its most fearsome blade. The cause later called the Amazons of Dahomey, an all-female regiment unlike any the world had seen. Some say Hangby was their patron, others their commander. What is clear is that these women were not simply palace guards, but warriors, trained to kill and trained never to turn their backs. They marched into battle carrying rifles, spears, and machetes, moving with the discipline of soldiers hardened by ritual. And that ritual began at birth. Every girl in Dahomey was assigned to the service of the king and the kingdom the moment her father held her for the first time. As soon as they could walk, they were sent to live with their grandmothers, learning the ways of women, while their parents moved to the royal compound to work as servants. By age 10, their training began in earnest, learning to read and write, mastering the skills expected of palace women: cooking, weaving, gardening, preparing medicines and cosmetics. But they also learned the skills of war, how to wield a weapon, how to track an enemy, and how to fight. Boys were taught the same thing, but girls had an extra burden. They were forbidden to get married, since a married woman owed her loyalty to her husband's house, and the king demanded absolute obedience from his soldiers. So unmarried they stayed, living together in barracks, separate from the men. And they were drilled constantly, their days filled with exercises, marches, and maneuvers, their nights with songs and dances. When they weren't training, they worked in the royal household, keeping it running smoothly. And they didn't just serve the king, they served the ancestors, too. Each evening, they conducted rituals to honor them, making sure the spirits of their forebears walked with them into battle. And in the thick of the fight, when death rained down around them, they relied on those same rituals to keep them alive. Their numbers grew steadily, but it was during Hangby's reign that they became truly formidable, the elite force of an elite army. And that army had many reasons to fight. When news of the riches in the Dahomeyan markets reached the Europeans, slave traders descended on the kingdom. At first, the demand for slaves was low, but over time, it grew steadily, and with it, the fortunes of the African kingdoms who sold them. Dahomey was no exception. Its rulers saw the slave trade as a chance to grow their power and wealth, and they used it to devastating effect. By the 1730s, when Hangby came to power, Dahomey was a slave empire, and it fought to keep it that way. The new queen found herself locked in a web of alliances and rivalries. To her north, the empires of Kanom and Bornu traded slaves with the Arabs across the Sahara. To the east, Oyo was carving a mini-empire out of the Yoruba kingdoms. To the south, the Portuguese and then the British and French were building forts along the coast to monopolize the trade there. And somewhere in the middle of this powder keg sat Dahomey, fighting to survive. Everyone wanted something from Dahomey, and everyone assumed the king was still a boy. But few knew that under his advisors' watchful eyes, he was being prepared for the day he would take the throne. Meanwhile, his sister hung heavy, keeping rivals at bay. And nowhere was her influence more evident than in the ranks of the Amazons. Even today, we don't know exactly when they first appeared. But chroniclers dating back to the mid-16th century mention the awe-inspiring sight of women warriors marching into battle. By the late 17th century, they were an institution, an integral part of the Dahomeyan army. And yet we have little idea how they operated until Hangby's reign. In the space of just a few years, she turned them into legends. European chroniclers arrived in the 17th century and left us with the first descriptions of the Amazons in action. These stories are often contradictory and sometimes unreliable, but woven together, they form a picture of an elite military force that struck terror into their enemies and wonder into the hearts of the Europeans. One such observer was German explorer and writer Philipp Johann von Soden, who described what he saw in 1704. It was the height of the slave trade, and Soden was looking to buy some captives when he met the king. But the monarch was reluctant to part with any of his subjects. He told Soden he could undertake the sale because a warrior queen named Hangby was away on campaign. She alone, he told Soden, has the power to dispose of human lives. And he was right. Henjeb had been queen for 16 years by then, and the people of Dahomey knew her strength well. The king she served was barely a teenager when he took the throne. And it was Henji who ran the kingdom while he learned the responsibilities of kingship. It was she who led the armies whenever the boy king gave the order to go to war. And it was she who watched over him as he grew up. Meanwhile, Europe was beginning to wake up to the evils of the slave trade. Abolitionists were gaining ground and governments were considering a ban. But that meant nothing as long as the kingdoms of Africa kept selling their people. And no one sold more than Dahomey. Theirs was a brutal and efficient machine. Men went to war to capture other men, women and children who were forced into domestic service. And boys were put to work in the gold and silver mines. Those who tried to escape were caught and punished severely. Girls destined for military service were separated from their families as soon as they were born, raised in barracks and trained to fight. And it was under Hangby's shadow that the Amazons grew, becoming a symbol of power that unsettled rivals and fascinated outsiders. And no one was more fascinated than the Europeans. They'd heard tales of ferocious women warriors, but they never believed them until they saw the Amazons drilling in the forests outside the capital. For the Europeans, their arrival in Dahomey was a revelation. Here were women who lived and fought like men. They wore the same clothes, carried the same weapons, and followed the same traditions. They were loyal to the king and fearless in battle. They were so fascinating, in fact, that when Europeans wrote about them, they often got their facts wrong. Sometimes they described the Amazons as prisoners of war, women captured by Dahomey's enemies and forced into military service. That wasn't true. Every girl in Dahomey was assigned to the service of the king and the kingdom the moment her father held her for the first time. Other times, they spoke of enormous camps filled with hundreds of thousands of women, waiting for their chance to fight. That wasn't true either. The Amazonian regiments were small, no more than a few thousand women each. Still, their exploits lived on in song and story, traveling with traders and soldiers, reaching the ears of kings and scholars. And by the end of this part, you'll understand that Hangby was more than a queen. She was the spark that lit a tradition of female leadership and martial defiance that would shape Dahomey's image for centuries to come. The reality is that the Amazons were an integral part of the Dahomeyan military machine, fighting alongside men, dying alongside them, and honoring their fallen alongside them, too. It's hard to imagine a world where fierce female warriors ruled the battlefield and women ascended to the highest levels of power, but it's real. It just doesn't look like anything the world had ever seen. The sun beats down on the palace complex at Ouida, turning the white walls of Dahomey into shimmering mirages. Inside, a young recruit fidgets nervously. Her name is Zora. She's all of 17 summers, but already knows that her life has changed forever. Tonight, she's to join the elite guard of the king's wives, the Minotaurs, and she's afraid. Fear is a luxury she can't afford. Her captain, Madame Ague, a veteran of countless battles, notices her agitation. A cruel smile twists her lips. Fear is a bird, she says, her voice like gravel on stone. That must be caged before it eats away at your insides. Zara swallows hard, clutching her spear tighter. She won't let her fear show. Not now, not ever. As night deepens, the Minotaur barracks come alive with activity. Women polish their armor, exchange nervous glances, and sharpen their weapons. Zora tries to focus on her equipment, but can't help glancing at her companions. Each woman is magnificent, strong, and sure of herself, except for Mina. Her face is pale, edged with worry, and her hands tremble slightly as she ties her helmet strap. Mina is rumored to be the king's daughter, but nobody knows for sure. Suddenly, Madame Ague barks orders. The women fall silent, their faces impassive. Tonight, we dine with the leopards, she announces, her eyes glittering with excitement. The women murmur amongst themselves, their voices hushed but eager. Dinner with the leopards means they're on a mission. Donning their distinctive leopard skin aprons, they form a tight column, spears held high, and march out into the darkness. Their first target is a small village that's defied the king's rule. For weeks, smoke has drifted lazily skyward from its thatched huts, a symbol of independence that must be extinguished. The village is asleep when the Amazons arrive. No dogs bark, no roosters crow, only the chirping of crickets breaks the silence. Madame Ague raises her hand and the column halts. "Remember your oath," she whispers. "Remember our purpose." The women nod, their gazes unwavering. A young man stirs in his hut, drawn by the rustle outside. Peeking cautiously through a window, he sees the imposing figures of the Amazons. His eyes widen in terror as they burst into his village, their movements swift and deadly. He watches, frozen with fear, as his neighbors are dragged from their homes and lined up before him. One of the Amazons spots him watching and raises her head, her eyes glinting in the moonlight. He shrinks back, hiding in the darkest corner of his house. There's nowhere to hide, nowhere to run. He knows what's coming. Madame Ague strides toward the cowering villagers. Her steps purposeful, she raises her voice, her words echoing in the stunned silence. Why have you defied the king? She demands. None of the villagers dare answer. How could they? What could they say to justify their disobedience? Zora steps forward, her voice clear and ringing. She's surprised by her own boldness, but something inside her, perhaps the spirit of bravery they've invoked, gives her strength. Speak, villagers, she commands, and perhaps you might find mercy. Still, no reply. Despair and defiance mingle in the silence. The Amazons don't force confessions. They seek none. Instead, they punish. Madame Ague turns to her companions. We cannot take prisoners tonight, she says. Her gaze sweeps over the trembling crowd. Everyone here must learn obedience. Zora looks away, unable to meet the villagers' pleading eyes. She closes her eyes, taking a deep breath. When she opens them again, she sees a chance to make things right. Stepping forward, she offers the villagers a choice, one that will shape their future and her own. She tells them they can submit and become loyal subjects, or leave and face the consequences. The decision hangs heavy in the air, pregnant with meaning. Finally, one of the villagers speaks up, his voice shaky but resolute. He chooses loyalty, offering submission on behalf of himself and his people. Relief washes over Zora. At least some have chosen to accept the king's rule. But she knows there's still work to do. As the sun rises, bathing the sky in hues of orange and purple, the Amazons stand guard, ready to defend their king and their kingdom. Their spears are firm in their grasp, their eyes sharp and alert. The sight of these fierce women deters any thought of rebellion. The news of the village's submission reaches the king, and he is pleased. Word spreads throughout the land of the might and fairness of the Amazons, and people come from far and wide to witness their prowess. Some are amazed, others envious, but all respect and fear the Dahomey Amazons. As years pass, Zara becomes a seasoned warrior, her skills honed, her bravery unmatched. Yet she never forgets the fears and uncertainties of her first mission. Now a leader herself, she guides younger recruits, sharing her knowledge and experience. She understands that each new member of the battalion carries their own fears and insecurities, and she's there to help them confront and overcome them. One day, a new recruit approaches her, his face etched with worry. He's heard stories of the Amazons' ferocity and doubts his ability to match their intensity. Zara listens patiently, her gaze kind and understanding. She knows that true strength comes not only from physical prowess, but also from mental fortitude. She tells him to embrace his emotions, not let them consume him. Fear can be a powerful motivator, she says, but it shouldn't control him. With Zara's guidance, the recruit finds a balance between heart and mind, between fear and courage. He learns to harness his emotions, to channel them into strength. As the sun sets, casting long shadows across the training grounds, Zara stands with the other Amazons, their forms silhouetted against the fiery sky. Together, they've defended their kingdom, upheld their traditions, and ensured their legacy. The Dahomey Amazons, a force to be reckoned with, a testament to the power of women, and a beacon of strength and resilience. And now, my friends, let us sit by the fire and speak of legendary deeds and ethereal forms. For today, we delve into the chronicles of the mighty Amazons, those celestial maidens who walked among mortals. Yet heed my words, for there are shadows lurking at the edges of their tale. Are you ready? Then let us begin. The echoes of the Amazons' footsteps did not fade with the passing of battles. In the marketplaces, along the narrow streets of Dahomey, and on the riverbanks where traders paused to rest, their stories were whispered, repeated, and embellished with every retelling. These women, trained in relentless discipline, accustomed to fear and exertion, yet bound by unbreakable loyalty, became legends not just for their skill, but for the audacity of their very presence. Their exploits became woven into the fabric of everyday life. The rhythmic cadence of their war drums resonated in children's games. The glint of their spears echoed in the flash of blacksmiths' tools. Even the most mundane tasks took on an epic quality as women stirring clay pots or grinding corn were said to emulate the Amazons' unyielding resolve. It was as if the spirit of these warriors pervaded every aspect of life, transforming the ordinary into the extraordinary. Folk songs carried their feats across villages. Children learned in hushed tones of warriors who could march for days without rest, who faced lions and enemy forces with a bravery that rivaled the gods. Their reputations were both protective and intimidating. Merchants and rivals alike knew the tales of Amazon patrols and their precise, fearsome tactics. In these oral histories, exaggeration was a tool of memory. The feats grew larger with each generation, but the core truths of courage, loyalty, and martial excellence remained. Imagine, if you will, a young boy sitting at his mother's knee, his eyes wide with wonder as she weaves tales of these extraordinary women. Each story is a masterclass in courage, strategy, and unbreakable bonds of sisterhood. The boy listens intently, soaking up the rhythms and cadences of her voice, committing the stories to memory, and in doing so, becoming a living repository of their history. As he grows older, he carries these tales with him, sharing them around his own hearth, ensuring the legacy of the Amazons' lives on through him. But the impact of the Amazons extended far beyond the realm of folklore. In the royal court, their presence was felt in subtle, enduring ways. Advisors and kings spoke of the Amazons' devotion not only to their own survival, but to the protection of the kingdom. Diplomats from neighboring states, when hearing of their prowess, tread carefully in negotiations. These women were living symbols of Dahomey's strength and discipline, and the myths surrounding them reinforced the kingdom's image as both formidable and sacred. Picture a grand council meeting within the royal palace. As the king enters, advisors stand to greet him, their voices echoing with respect and admiration for their sovereign. But there is something different in their demeanor today. They speak not just of kingdoms and conquests, but of the Amazons, their loyalty, their ferocity, and their unwavering commitment to the throne. The king, too, carries himself with a newfound gravity, aware that he is not just a ruler, but the protector of a legacy that these women embody. The very air in the chamber crackles with the weight of their shared responsibility, the destiny woven into the fabric of their existence. In times of peace, the Amazons continued their vital role in society. Their influence transcended the battlefield, seeping into the very essence of daily life. They were not just warriors, but pillars of their communities, embodying the ideals of strength, resilience, and unwavering spirit. During peaceful seasons, they played an active role in agriculture, ensuring bountiful harvests that sustained their communities. Their knowledge of medicinal herbs and healing practices made them respected caregivers, and their strategic minds were also put to use in planning and governance, proving their value went far beyond their martial prowess. In the quiet moments between battles, they mentored younger warriors, passing down their skills and traditions. This continuity ensured that the Amazonian legacy lived on, each new generation inspired by the stories and achievements of their predecessors. Under the dappled shade of ancient trees, amidst the rustling leaves and the murmur of nearby streams, the wisdom and experience of seasoned warriors were shared. Imagine a circle of women, their faces etched with the stories of countless battles, their eyes twinkling with both wisdom and mischief. They share tales of daring exploits, offering guidance not just in combat, but in life, weaving a tapestry of knowledge that strengthened the bonds of their community. They were also key participants in religious ceremonies, their presence adding solemnity and power to rituals that honored their gods and ancestors. In the vibrant tapestry of their faith, they wove together prayers, music, and dance, creating a rich, textured spirituality that celebrated the cycles of life, death, and rebirth. With the rhythmic pulse of drums echoing their devotion, the Amazons of Dahomey paid homage to the divine, forging a profound connection between the mortal and the spiritual. By the end of this segment, the Amazons of Dahomey were no longer merely soldiers. They were myth, memory, and moral compass, living, breathing embodiments of the kingdom's values and the fierce, disciplined beauty of its people. Now we come to a pivotal point in our journey through the chronicles of the Amazons. A moment when their exploits became not just stories whispered around campfires, but living, breathing legends that echoed through the ages. It is a testament to their unwavering spirit, their indomitable courage, and the indelible mark they left on the world around them. As the sun began its slow descent, casting long shadows across the land, the Amazons gathered around the flickering flames, their faces illuminated by the dancing firelight, their eyes reflecting both the warmth of the moment and the steely resolve that defined them. Theirs was a camaraderie forged in the fires of countless battles, tempered by sweat, blood, and an unbreakable bond of loyalty that defied the test of time. Within this circle of flickering light and shared stories, the lines between reality and legend began to blur. Their feats of strength, precision, and strategic brilliance were more than just historical events. They became part of a living, breathing mythology that elevated the Amazons to near mythical status. Here, beneath the canopy of stars, with the crackling fire as their only illumination, the Amazons of Dahomey wove their magic. Each story was a brushstroke on the canvas of their collective memory. Each shared laugh and solemn nod adding depth and texture to the tapestry of their shared existence. It was here, in these moments of quiet camaraderie, that their true essence shone through, revealing the heart and soul of these extraordinary women. In the tapestry of their oral tradition, their exploits were magnified, not just in size, but in significance. The echo of their footsteps in the marketplace became a resonant boom, their training grounds reverberating with supernatural energy. The whispers in the tall grasses along the riverbank took on the cadence of ancestral voices, ensuring their presence was felt not just in the physical world, but in the spiritual one as well. With each retelling, their feats of strength, precision, and strategic brilliance were magnified, becoming less human, more divine. Battles were not just clashes of arms, they were showcases of superhuman prowess. Spears flashed like lightning, shields held firm against mythical beasts, and their ranks seemed to grow with spectral reinforcements, making the Amazons seem less like mortal warriors and more like embodiments of their nation's power. In this ethereal realm of myth and memory, they were both revered and feared. Their names whispered with reverence by awestruck onlookers, their opponents trembled at the mere mention of their prowess. The Amazons of Dahomey became synonymous with an indomitable spirit, blurring the line between warrior and demigod. And as the night deepened and the stars twinkled overhead, their campfire tales served as a potent reminder. Their feats were not just part of their history, they were the very stuff of legend, forever etching their names in the annals of eternity. This is where we must pause, dear listeners, for the stories of the Amazons do not belong solely to history books or dusty scrolls. They are alive, vibrant, and ever-evolving, carried on the winds of tradition, echoing in the laughter of children and burning brightly in the hearts of those who keep their memory alive. Until next time, may the echoes of their bravery resonate within you, urging you to find your own strength and forge your own legends. And when the campfire's glow fades and the stars begin their nightly dance, remember the Amazons, for they are a testament to the boundless spirit that resides within us all. And now we come to the final chapter of this extraordinary tale, a moment when the very essence of the Amazons of Dahomey is distilled, leaving us with a profound understanding of their enduring legacy. Theirs is a story that transcends time, reminding us of the strength, discipline, and unity that lie at the heart of human resilience. As we reflect on their journey, we realize that the Amazons were not just warriors, they were architects of their own destiny, shaping their world with unwavering determination and an unbreakable bond of sisterhood. Their influence resonated through every facet of their society, leaving an indelible mark on history, culture, and the very soul of their people. Theirs was a legacy that refused to be confined to the pages of history books or the dusty relics of the past. It pulsed with the heartbeat of tradition, echoing in the whispers of the wind and the rustling of leaves. Their influence seeped into the core of Dahomey, shaping its identity, fortifying its spirit, and ensuring their values endured through the ages. Even as the sands of time shifted and the world around them changed, the Amazons stood as eternal sentinels, guarding the sanctity of their traditions, the purity of their ideals, and the strength of their unbreakable bond. Their influence transcended the battlefield, weaving itself into the very fabric of their communities. They were healers, advisors, and mentors. Their wisdom sought after, their guidance revered. Their presence was a beacon of stability in a world often marked by chaos and uncertainty. For the Amazons of Dahomey were not just figures of the past, they were living, breathing embodiments of the indomitable human spirit. The rumble of drums echoed through Dahomey, a deep heartbeat that roused the city from slumber. It was the annual festival of the customs, when Dahomey, the mighty kingdom nestled in the heart of Africa, unveiled its soul. In this vibrant realm where tradition reigned supreme, the annual customs were more than just rituals. They were a declaration of power, a testament to faith, and a celebration of heritage. These customs were the lifeblood of Dahomey. Its king, the self-proclaimed son of the divine, used them to reinforce his celestial mandate. For the people of Dahomey, these customs weren't just spectacles. They were a way of life, a demonstration of unity and a profound connection to their ancestral roots. Now let's dive into this captivating narrative, exploring how the customs of Dahomey intertwined with daily life, politics, and religion. The annual customs of Dahomey were not mere traditions. They were the heartbeat of the kingdom. Every year, like clockwork, the streets of Dahomey came alive with a kaleidoscope of colors and sounds during the Festival of the Customs. This wasn't just a celebration. It was a profound connection to their cultural roots. Imagine, if you will, a vast ceremonial square in Dahomey, the capital city of Dahomey, where grandstands stood in neat rows facing a large open space. On one side of the square stood a magnificent palace, its walls adorned with intricate carvings and vibrant murals depicting scenes from the kingdom's rich history. To the right of the palace, a massive iron-wrought fence enclosed the royal court, adding an air of regality to the proceedings. Behind the court, towering trees formed a natural canopy, providing dappled shade and a picturesque backdrop for the festivities. And then there were the drummers. Oh, the drummers. Their presence pulsated with energy, each beat resonating with the rhythm of life in Dahomey. These men, women, and children, clad in resplendent attire, pounded out melodies on a variety of drums, their movements synchronized and powerful. Some drums were small and high-pitched, while others were massive, their deep tones echoing across the square. Each note, each crescendo and decrescendo had its own meaning, telling an unspoken story that everyone understood. As the morning sun climbed higher, nobles and dignitaries began to arrive, their footsteps echoing on the packed earth. They were a sea of color, adorned with intricate patterns and symbols that spoke of their status and lineage. Walking past the decorated palaces, they made their way to the grandstands, exchanging greetings and discussing the day's events in hushed tones. Ordinary citizens, merchants, farmers, and artisans also made their way to the square, filling up the stands along the sides. They came from all corners of the kingdom, drawn by the irresistible pull of tradition and community. Children skipped ahead of their parents, their eyes wide with excitement, eager to witness the unfolding spectacle. Amidst this sea of humanity, the anticipation was palpable. Everyone present knew that what was about to unfold was more than just a festival. It was a reaffirmation of their shared identity, a tribute to their ancestors and a celebration of life in Dahomey. But before the main event, there was preparation. And in Dahomey, preparation was an art form. Days, even weeks before the festival, artists would don their smocks and pick up their brushes. They would paint intricate designs on large circular shields, transforming them into canvases of vibrant colors and bold patterns. Musicians would gather in the courtyards of nobles' houses, practicing ancient melodies that had been passed down for generations. Their instruments, from the talking drum to the elegant harp, would fill the air with hauntingly beautiful music. Priests would purify sacred spaces, ensuring that they were ready to welcome the spirits that were about to converge upon them. In the bustling markets, vendors would display their finest wares, everything from exotic spices to hand-woven textiles, creating a vibrant tapestry of sights and sounds. The entire city seemed to hold its breath in anticipation. Then it began, the procession. From the far end of the city, the rhythmic pulse of drums grew louder, signaling the approach of the royal court. Men, women, and children, dressed in their finest ceremonial garb, emerged from behind the trees lining the procession route. Their steps were in unison, their heads held high, their voices chanting in harmony. At the head of the procession walked the king's counselors, their faces solemn, their bodies bearing the insignia of their rank. Behind them came the warriors, their movements sharp and precise, their bodies taut with discipline. The air crackled with their energy as they demonstrated their prowess with spears and swords, their every gesture exuding confidence and power. Then came the king's children, their innocence a stark contrast to the solemnity of the adults around them. They were like bright sparks amidst a sea of tradition, their laughter echoing with the joy of childhood. Following them were priests carrying sacred objects, their robes flowing behind them like waves on a calm sea. Their presence added a layer of spirituality to the procession, reminding all onlookers of the sacred nature of the occasion. The rhythm of the drums intensified, quickening the pace of the procession. As they approached the square, the crowd's excitement reached a fever pitch. Suddenly, the trees parted and the royal court entered the square, led by the king himself. He sat on a golden throne carried by 8 men, his face adorned with traditional regalia and jewelry. His every movement commanded attention, his presence radiating authority and tradition. Once the king was seated on his throne, the procession continued. Acrobats and dancers took their turn, their movements fluid and graceful. The acrobats balanced on narrow beams, defying gravity with their feats of strength and agility. The dancers twirled and leaped, their costumes shimmering in the sunlight. Each performance was a testament to months, even years of training, and they captivated the audience with their skill and artistry. Amidst the swirl of activity, however, there was an undercurrent of tension. For those who were attuned to the nuances of courtly life, every interaction, every gesture had multiple layers of meaning. Rival families vying for the king's favor kept a close eye on their competitors. Royal counselors whispered strategies, not only for the upcoming battles, but also for the intricate game of courtly politics. The very air buzzed with the energy of competition and ambition. But above it all, there was the spectacle, the grandeur of the ceremony, the precision of the movements, the intricacy of the costumes, all served to remind the people of Dahomey of the unique place they occupied in the world. Here in this kingdom nestled in the heart of Africa, tradition wasn't just preserved, it was celebrated. Life in Dahomey, with its blend of ceremony and politics, tradition and change, was a dance, and the annual customs were its most mesmerizing performance. As the festival reached its climax, there was a sense of collective euphoria. The boundaries between performers and spectators blurred. Everyone was caught up in the magic of the moment, united by their shared heritage and traditions. But as the sun began its slow descent, and the last notes of the drums echoed in the twilight, a sobering realization set in. Another year had passed. The cycle of seasons had turned, and the time for preparation and celebration had come to an end. It was time to return to the routines of everyday life, to the markets, farms, and workshops that were the backbone of Dahomey. Yet something had shifted. Bonds had been reinforced, memories had been created, and the spirit of community had been rekindled. The annual customs hadn't just been a spectacle. They were a reminder of what truly mattered in Dahomey: unity, tradition, and the enduring legacy of their ancestors. And as the people of Dahomey returned to their daily lives, they carried with them the echoes of the drums, the vibrant colors, and the sense of unity that had pervaded the festival. The annual customs were more than just a part of their history. They were the living, breathing essence of Dahomey. And so the story of Dahomey continues, with each new generation adding its own chapter to the rich tapestry of its history. The customs, the traditions, and the values that had been handed down for generations remained alive and well, ensuring that the legacy of this magnificent kingdom would endure for many centuries to come. Every morning, when the sun first touched the horizon, a hush would fall over the bustling city. In those quiet moments before the world stirred, the kings of Dahomey made their way to the grand square before the palace. It was here, in this vast open space that served as both marketplace and parade ground, where the heart of their kingdom beat strongest. And it was here that the story of Dahomey, its triumphs and tragedies, hopes and fears, were acted out on a grand scale. Here, in the level stretch of earth, away from the noise of the city, surrounded by the expectant faces of their people, the kings would perform the rituals that linked them, their ancestors and their subjects. This was more than just a ceremony. It was a reenactment of creation, a reaffirmation of their bond with the spirit world. Each movement, each chant was a thread that wove the fabric of their society. Now, imagine, if you will, the scene unfolding before your eyes. The early morning air is thick with anticipation. The square is a sea of expectant faces, a mosaic of vibrant colors and textures. The men, adorned in their finest garments, some bearing the scars of past battles, stand shoulder to shoulder with women in colorful wrappers and veiled faces, their children perched on their hips or playing at their feet. Together they form a community, united by their customs, their history, and their unwavering loyalty to their king. And then he appears. The king, not as a distant ruler, but as one of them, striding purposefully across the square. His regalia, a symbol of his lineage, is a tangible link to the generations that came before. As he takes his place on the sacred stool, a wave of murmurs ripples through the crowd. It's a sound of respect, of acknowledgement, a testament to the reverence they hold for their leader. The music begins, a deep, resonant hum that seems to rise from the earth itself. The drums speak in a language older than words, a language the ancestors understood. And as the rhythm builds, the king responds. His movements are precise, deliberate, echoing the very essence of his kingdom. Each clap, each stomp is a punctuation mark in the story of Dahomey. He is not merely dancing, he is enacting, keeping alive the memory of his people. The crowd joins in, their voices blending in a harmonious whole. The songs they sing tell tales of bravery, of sacrifice, of unity. They are anthems of devotion, not just to the king, but to the spirit of their nation. Their voices carry on the wind, weaving a tapestry of sound that reaches far beyond the confines of the square. As the ceremony progresses, the energy shifts. The drums pound with a new urgency, the voices rise in fervor. It's time for the sacrifices. Now, these are not mere offerings, but acts of communion, a way of sustaining the harmony of their world. Animals are led forward, their presence a symbol of the bounty of the land. Crops, the fruits of their labor, are laid at the foot of the sacred tree, and sometimes prisoners taken in battle, their lives spared by the king's mercy, are given a chance at redemption. Each offering is an act of faith, a testament to the belief that the spiritual world is ever present, guiding, protecting, demanding. The king, acting as the intermediary between the two realms, performs the ritual with reverence and precision. The animal is blessed, its life honored, its sacrifice accepted. As the smoke rises, carrying the essence of the offering to the gods, a hush falls over the crowd. There is a sense of solemnity, of shared purpose, of duty fulfilled. In that moment, they have all done their part to ensure the continued prosperity of their kingdom. As the ceremony draws to a close, the king dismounts from the stool, his movements slow, deliberate, the weight of the ritual still palpable. The crowd stirs, a murmur running through them like a gentle breeze. The atmosphere, though solemn, is one of fulfillment. They have participated in something larger than themselves, something that bound them together in a way that transcended their individual differences. Now, let's shift our perspective to a humble dwelling on the outskirts of the city. The interior is dimly lit. The walls adorned with family heirlooms and charms meant to ward off evil spirits. A small fire crackles merrily in the center of the room, casting flickering shadows on the earthen floor. A woman tends the fire, her movements practiced and graceful, her face etched with the wisdom of years spent living in harmony with the rhythms of her world. Her children, their faces alight with wonder, gather around her, their laughter echoing in the intimate space. It is dawn, and as the first rays of sunlight touch the horizon, she begins the day's rituals. She whispers a prayer to the ancestors, thanking them for their protection and guidance. She asks for their blessings on her children, for their strength, for their wisdom, for their journey through life. And as she speaks, the fire crackles, a silent witness to the continuity of tradition. She tells them stories of the great kings, of the heroes of old, and of the responsibilities that come with being a member of their society. She teaches them the songs and dances, the chants and rhythms that have been passed down to her, ensuring that the legacy of their culture will live on in the next generation. Her voice, strong and clear, resonates in the small space, weaving magic with each word. As the firelight dances in her eyes, you can almost hear the echoes of the drums from the square. Feel the pulse of the city waking up. Hear the laughter of children playing, the chatter of adults going about their day. Life in Dahomey is not just about the grand ceremonies, but about the everyday rituals that make up the fabric of their existence. And so, as the sun climbs higher in the sky, she turns to her children, her face etched with love and determination. It is time for them to start their day, to go out into the world and be the best versions of themselves, knowing that they carry within them the spirit of their ancestors, the strength of their community, and the promise of a bright future. As they leave the house, the fire still burning merrily, she watches them go, a sense of pride and hope filling her heart. In this small hut, in this simple act of passing on traditions, the essence of Dahomey thrives. The annual customs may come and go, but the spirit of their culture, their heritage, their identity, that lives on in every heartbeat of their people. The years pass, seasons change, but the rhythm of life in Dahomey continues. The memories of the great ceremonies fade not because they are forgotten, but because they become part of the everyday, part of the very soul of the people. The children grow, learn, and contribute to the ongoing narrative of their society. The stories become part of their identity, shaping their understanding of the world and their place in it. Even when the drums fall silent and the dancers take their final bows, the echoes of the customs resonate in the halls of memory. In the heart of every Dahomey, there is a spark of the ancestral flame, kept alive by the continuity of tradition, the resilience of the human spirit, and the enduring power of their customs. And as the sun sets on another day in Dahomey, casting long shadows across the land, the people prepare for the night. The sounds of the day fade into a gentle hum, the bustle of activity replaced by the soft murmur of conversation. Inside the huts, families gather, sharing stories and laughter, their faces illuminated by the flickering light of the fire. The ceremonies may be over for now, but their impact lingers. The rhythms of the drums echo in their hearts, the melodies of the songs on their lips. Even in the stillness of the night, the spirit of the customs lives on, a testament to the rich cultural heritage of Dahomey and its people. And so, as darkness falls, the memories of the great ceremonies serve as a reminder of their strength, their unity, and their enduring connection to their ancestors. They may dance no longer on the square, but the dance of life goes on, forever marked by the indelible rhythms of their customs. As I stepped into the sprawling royal plaza, the night sky above Dahomey glittered with ancestral weight. Beneath it, the kingdom came alive in the annual customs, a spectacle of drums, dance, and devotion unlike anything I'd ever witnessed. These were no ordinary rituals, but living scrolls of memory where each gesture, each song, each offering stitched the people of Dahomey closer to one another and to the spirits of their past. The ceremonies weren't for the king or the ancestors alone, but for the very heartbeat of Dahomey. It was a celebration of the belief that the living and the dead were bound in a circle without end. By the flicker of torches, thousands of us gathered in courtyards and sacred grounds. Dancers stamped out rhythms that echoed the thunder of old battles. Drummers pounded deep, steady notes, a second pulse beneath the one in my chest. The offerings of corn, yams, palm oil, and animal sacrifice were more than tribute. They were a form of language, a way of telling the ancestors, we remember, we honor, we continue. And I found myself swept up in the current of sound and motion, feeling the spirit of continuity pull me along. But there was more to these rituals than met the eye. In the heart of the plaza, the annual customs also acted as a vast archive of communication. Not everyone could write in letters, but everyone could read the patterns in the rituals. When the king received gifts from all provinces, when he sat at the center of oaths and praise songs, the message was clear. Unity was non-negotiable. Ritual was the spine of the kingdom, and every man, woman, and child learned its weight. Children pressed close to their elders, wide-eyed, absorbing the stories hidden inside each chant. Warriors stood proudly as living symbols of courage. Farmers saw their labor lifted in offerings that became sacred. Even the poorest villager felt included, for the ancestors required presence, not wealth. And it was in those moments of shared experience that I truly understood the power of tradition. It wove together the disparate threads of the kingdom, reminding each person that they were part of something larger than themselves. It was a balm for the soul, a solace in an ever-changing world. In the days following, I walked the dusty paths of oil, my mind echoing with the drums. I saw the customs not as a spectacle, but as a living, breathing entity. It pulsed within the walls of the royal palace, thrummed in the swaying grass of the village markets, resonated in the rhythmic pounding of a blacksmith's hammer. It was everywhere and nowhere, a constant hum beneath the surface of everyday life. One evening, sitting with a group of storytellers around a crackling fire, I heard tales of bravery, of legendary battles, and of kings long gone. I learned of heroes whose names were now dust, but whose deeds lived on in the customs, ensuring their memory endured. The stories wove a tapestry of identity, connecting the present to the past and reminding the people of their shared heritage. A grizzled old hunter spoke of his initiation into adulthood during the customs, of how the rituals marked not just time, but milestones in a man's life. His voice, rough as bark, cracked with emotion as he recalled the weight of tradition, the responsibility of carrying on the customs for the next generation. Then there was the healer, her wrinkled hands gnarled like the roots of an ancient tree. She spoke of the customs as a source of strength, a way of maintaining balance in a world that often felt chaotic. She told me how the rituals helped her commune with the spirits, seeking guidance and wisdom to heal the sick. Her words were soft but steady, like the rhythm of a heartbeat. But perhaps the most poignant tales were those of the women who kept the traditions alive. They were the weavers, the dancers, the singers, the keepers of knowledge passed down through generations. Their voices, though often unheard, were essential to the customs. They wove the stories of their ancestors into the fabric of the present, ensuring the past was never forgotten. It was through these stories, through this oral history, that the true essence of the annual customs revealed itself to me. It wasn't just a spectacle, a mere display of cultural heritage. It was a lifeline to the past, a bridge between generations, a way of preserving identity in a rapidly changing world. Yet I couldn't help but wonder about the king. How did these rituals shape his role? What responsibilities did they impose on him? And how did he, in turn, shape the traditions through his own actions and choices? I found my answer in the royal palace, in the ornate throne room where kings had sat for centuries. Here, amidst the symbols of power and tradition, I met the king. He was a young man, his face bearing the weight of his lineage. Yet there was a gentleness about him that belied his regal bearing. He spoke to me of his role as a custodian of the customs, a link in an unbroken chain that stretched back to the kingdom's founding. He told me of the pressures he faced, the expectations that rested on his shoulders. For the king, the rituals weren't just a celebration, they were a burden. He had to uphold the traditions flawlessly, lest there be chaos. His words echoed in the vast emptiness of the throne room, amplifying his solitude. Despite the opulence around him, I sensed a profound loneliness in the king, a longing for someone to share the weight of his responsibilities. But then I realized that in a way he wasn't alone. He was surrounded by the ghosts of his ancestors, the spirits of kings past who had walked the same halls. performed the same rituals, and made the same sacrifices. He was part of a lineage, a legacy that transcended time. In the quiet moments, when the echoes of the celebrations faded, the king found solace in the continuity of tradition. It was a comfort, a reminder that he wasn't just a king. He was a vessel through which the spirit of Dahomey flowed. As the days turned into weeks, I continued to witness the customs, not as an outsider, but as a participant. I joined in the dances, the chants, even the offerings, feeling the weight of tradition settle upon me. And in those moments of shared experience, I understood that the rituals weren't just about preserving the past, they were about shaping the future. They were a way of passing on the torch, ensuring the flame of cultural identity burned bright for generations to come. The annual customs of Dahomey were more than rituals. They were a testament to the human spirit, our need for connection, for identity, and for hope. They reminded me that even in the face of change, of progress, of modernization, there was power in tradition, in the stories we tell ourselves about who we are and where we come from. As my time in Dahomey drew to a close, I carried with me the rhythms, the chants, and the stories of its people. I left with a deeper understanding of their culture, their history, and their indomitable spirit. And as I walked away from the kingdom, I knew that the customs would continue, that the ancestors would continue to watch over their descendants, ensuring the circle remained unbroken. Let us explore the echoes left behind by the royal palaces of Dahomey. Now, these weren't just buildings of brick and earth. No, they were living maps of authority, repositories of memory, and the quiet heartbeats of a kingdom bound by war and ritual. To walk through their courtyards was to feel history pressing against one's skin, as if each wall had absorbed the sweat of warriors, the whispers of priests, and the decisions of kings. But what made them so unique? What secrets did their silent walls hold? And how can we, even today, hear the echoes of Dahomey within them? First, we have to understand the very stuff these palaces were made of. They weren't palaces of stone. Oh no, their grandeur wasn't measured in marble columns or towers scraping the clouds. Instead, they rose from packed clay, their ochre-red hues mirroring the soil of Dahomey itself. Remember, we're talking about West Africa, a land where the earth is rich, the sun is strong, and the people are deeply connected to the soil. So, the palace wasn't just a building. It was the land reshaped by human hands into a theater of power. Within its courtyards, each ruler built their own compound, a reflection of both their reign and their vision. But there was a pattern to this freedom, a melody each king played on the instrument of authority. Mud walls were adorned with bas-reliefs, sculpted stories etched in clay, tales of hunters, serpents, and battles, not just idle decorations, but declarations. They spoke a language older than words, a vocabulary of symbols that told the story of the king's lineage, their victories claimed, and the ancestors who stood eternal guard over Dahomey. Every motif was a reminder that the palace was not simply a home, but a sacred archive of identity. Inside the courtyards, life pulsed with a rhythm both ceremonial and practical. You might find the king's wives tending to rituals, artisans shaping ivory and bronze, and warriors sharpening their blades beneath shaded awnings. The palace was at once a court of politics, a workshop of art, and a barracks of discipline. Each space had its hierarchy, its own story to tell. Antechambers where petitioners waited, some hoping for justice, others seeking an audience with the king. Inner sanctums where trusted advisors whispered strategies, and restricted rooms where secrets of state and spirit were kept. It wasn't just about power. The palace was also a microcosm of the kingdom itself. a reflection of the diversity and dynamism of Dahomey. Within its many courtyards and halls, merchants could be found trading goods from distant lands, diplomats negotiating treaties, and scholars poring over ancient texts. The very design of the palace echoed the cosmos. Courtyards opened to the east to welcome the rising sun, a daily renewal of the king's divine role. Sacred trees grew within palace compounds, their shade linking the king to the eternal cycle of life and death. These were not accidental details, but carefully woven threads in the kingdom's fabric. They wove a tapestry of meaning that spoke of order, renewal, and the king's connection to the spiritual realm. Every element, from the orientation of the courtyard to the species of the sacred tree, had its significance. They showed that the ruler was not only a man of politics, but a node between heaven and earth, a conduit through which the spiritual energies of the cosmos flowed. Walking through the palace was like stepping into another world, a world of power, tradition, and deep spiritual meaning. The air would hum with the energy of centuries, whispering tales of great kings and pivotal moments in history. It was a place where the past wasn't confined to books or museums, but lived and breathed within the very walls, the silence between the echoes. The materials used in the palace spoke volumes about the kingdom's values and beliefs. Sun-baked clay, a symbol of the earth's bounty, was more than just a building material. It was a way to honor the land that sustained them. The use of natural pigments like ochre not only added color, but carried symbolic meaning, connecting the rulers to the landscape itself. These palaces weren't just grand structures. They were living, breathing entities, integral to the political, social, and spiritual life of Dahomey. They were the stage on which power was enacted, the canvas on which history unfolded, and the silent witnesses to the rise and fall of generations. But what happens when these silent witnesses are threatened? When the echoes of the past start to fade? When the memories embedded in the walls are at risk of being lost? These palaces faced many perils, from the ravages of time to the indifference of those who failed to understand their significance. Natural decay took its toll on the structures, and neglect or intentional vandalism chipped away at their grandeur. Yet, through it all, the spirits of Dahomey endured, whispering their stories to those who paused to listen. In recent times, efforts have been made to preserve these echoes, to protect them not just for the sake of history, but for the living memory of a kingdom that continues to inspire. Restoration projects and educational initiatives aim to ensure that the legacy of Dahomey lives on, that the palaces stand not just as ruins, but as symbols of a rich cultural heritage. Perhaps the most striking aspect of these palaces is the way they embody the essence of Dahomey, without ever leaving the ground. Unlike many kingdoms of their time, the palaces didn't reach for the sky with soaring minarets or pointed spires. They remained rooted in the earth, grounding the kings and their courts in the physical reality of their domain. This was a deliberate choice, a reflection of the deep connection the people of Dahomey had with their land and their ancestors. But how does one truly appreciate these grounded echoes of power? How does one connect with the spirit of a kingdom that thrived on the principles of earth and sky? It begins with a shift in perspective. We must acknowledge that the greatness of Dahomey wasn't measured in height or opulence, but in the depth of its cultural roots and the richness of its traditions. It's in the intricate patterns of the woven mats, the rhythmic beats of the talking drum, and the verses of epic poems that recount the deeds of past heroes that we find the true measure of this kingdom. To walk among the ruins of the Dahomey palaces is to feel the weight of this legacy, to understand that every footprint left on the clay was once part of a vibrant community. Every echo carried on the wind was once a voice contributing to the kingdom's song. The magic of Dahomey lies not in the grandiose spectacle, but in the subtle beauty of everyday life, in the rituals that marked the passage of time, in the stories that shaped their worldview, and in the art that expressed their deepest beliefs. If the walls of the palace could speak, what stories would they tell? What secrets of Dahomey would they reveal? Perhaps they would whisper tales of the great kings who walked their halls, of the diplomats who negotiated peace and trade, of the artisans who crafted exquisite works of art, and of the ordinary people who made the kingdom thrive. They might speak of the challenges they faced, the wars they fought, and the changes they weathered, all in the name of preserving their way of life. What wisdom can we glean from the echoes of Dahomey? Perhaps it's in their resilience that we find inspiration, their ability to adapt and survive in the face of adversity, to maintain their cultural identity amidst shifting sands of history. The wind whispers secrets through the tall grasses of the savannah, tales carried on the backs of birds that have flown over kingdoms long gone. One such story is that of Dahomey, a realm whose echoes still linger in the memories of its people. And here we find ourselves once again in the heart of Dahomey's great city, Ouidah, standing in the bustling marketplace. Around us, merchants hawk their wares, their voices competing with the rhythmic pounding of a blacksmith's hammer. The air is thick with the aroma of spices, leather, and wood smoke, a heady mix that speaks of trade routes that stretch across the savannah and beyond. We've heard tales of the great wealth generated here, of how its markets are renowned as places where fortunes are made and lost on the turn of a phrase. But today our attention is drawn to a different spectacle, one that unfolds not in the crowded stalls, but in the open courtyard of a clay palace. Here, amid the low murmurs of courtiers and the rustle of finely patterned cloth, we see them, those enigmatic figures whose lives are intricately woven into the very fabric of this kingdom. They are the fond custodians of tradition, keepers of ancient rituals, and most importantly, the king's attendants. Their presence here is not merely ceremonial. It's a display of power, a silent testament to the king's might. In this grand courtyard, where the sun beats down relentlessly during the day and the moon casts an ethereal glow at night, the rhythm of life in Dahomey unfolds. This is the theater of power, where loyalty is affirmed, alliances are brokered, and the king's dominance is made visible. Welcome back, travelers, to our series exploring the hidden wonders of Africa. Today we continue our journey into the heart of the mighty Dahomey kingdom, where the past is never truly past and the present is always a negotiation of power, custom, and change. If you're new to our channel, join us in our mission to rewrite history by uncovering the vibrant tapestry of African civilizations. So let's begin our journey into the bustling marketplaces and the hushed ceremonial courts of Dahomey. Before we step further into the courtyard, let us take a moment to appreciate the details that speak so much about the world we find ourselves in. Look closely at the patterns on the cloth worn by the fawn. Each design, each color tells a story of identity, rank, and heritage. And what of the intricate hairstyles adorning their heads? These are not mere adornments, but symbols that speak of lineage and belonging. In the heart of the courtyard, we see the men seated on the ground, their bodies forming a circle around something important. In this close-knit community of warriors and courtiers, age, status, and skill are all communicated through subtle cues. An elder may be accorded extra respect, a skilled hunter might wear distinctive ornaments, and a respected leader could hold a particular type of staff or spear. Even the way they dress, whether in brightly colored cotton or animal hide, can signify their role within the group. As we move deeper into the scene, our eyes are drawn to two imposing figures. The first is the king himself, seated on a raised platform. His headdress is a testament to his status. Those intricate designs and the very materials used often tell stories of bravery, lineage, and spiritual connection. The second is the royal advisor, Agasu. His position is a pivotal one, standing as a link between the king and the wider community. His role is not merely advisory, but strategic, diplomatic, and often a calming presence in times of crisis. The Fon are the bedrock of Dahomey society, the unseen force that ensures the smooth functioning of the kingdom. They are the ones who keep the gears of power well oiled, allowing the king and the state to thrive. These men standing before the king are not just any subjects, they are the elite, the men of influence, the men who hold the kingdom together when the king is absent. They are the ones who keep the wheels of trade turning, ensuring that the markets of oil and the trading posts on the coast buzz with activity. When merchants from distant lands arrive, bearing gifts and seeking audience with the king, it is the Fon who receive them. They are the gatekeepers of access, the intermediaries between the ordinary folk and the royal court. In times of peace, they oversee the collection of taxes and tributes, making sure that the coffers of the kingdom remain full. In times of war, they rally the warriors, ensuring that the king's forces are ready to defend Dahomey's borders. They are the men who keep the balance, who ensure that the scales of justice remain level. They are the ones who keep the traditions alive, who perform the rituals that bind the kingdom to its past. In essence, the Fon are the soul of Dahomey. They are the ones who keep the spirit of the kingdom alive, who make sure that the legacy of their ancestors is honored and preserved. They are the guardians of culture, the carriers of history, and the silent architects of Dahomey's greatness. This painting captures not just a moment in time, but a timeless truth about the Fon and their place in Dahomey. It is a tribute to the unsung heroes of the kingdom, the men who stand in the shadows, ensuring that the king and the state can shine. At this point, we must understand the central figure in this tableau, the king. To be the king of Dahomey was to embody the spiritual as well as the temporal power of the realm. It wasn't just a title, it was a heavy mantle. The king wasn't just a ruler, he was a god on earth, a living embodiment of the divine will. The elaborate headdress, the rich garments, and the very way he was portrayed all served to emphasize this divine status. The king was seen as the link between the heavens and the earth, the conduit through which the wishes of the gods were made known. But being so close to the divine came with its burdens. The king was expected to uphold the traditions, to offer sacrifices, and to lead the people in matters of faith. He was the chief priest, the ultimate arbiter in religious matters, and the final authority in settling disputes over ritual practices. This painting shows the king in a rare moment of leisure, perhaps enjoying a hunting expedition or a stroll in the royal enclave. Even in this relaxed setting, the trappings of royalty are evident. The king is shown with his retinue, with courtiers fanning him, attendants walking behind, and guards ready to protect him from any harm. It's a scene of calm amidst the chaos of the kingdom, a reminder that even kings need moments of respite. It's also a testament to the power of art to capture the human side of royalty, to show that even those who sit on the throne are human after all. In the next scene, we shift our focus to another key player in the drama of the kingdom, the Ahosi. These noble warriors are not just fighters, they are the king's shield, the protectors of the realm. Their loyalty is absolute, their courage unquestioned, and their martial skills are legendary. These men are the backbone of Dahomey's military might, the ones who stand ready to defend the kingdom against any threat, be it a neighboring warlord or a marauding tribe from the north. They are the ones who make the king's will felt beyond the borders of Dahomey, expanding the kingdom's influence through strength and strategy. In times of peace, they don't just rest on their laurels. Instead, they train, honing their skills, testing their endurance, and perfecting their tactics. They live by a strict code of conduct, instilling discipline, courage, and camaraderie among their ranks. When the call to arms does come, they are ready. The women in the painting are not merely onlookers, they are active participants in this warrior culture. They are the wives and daughters of the nobility, and they too are trained in the arts of war. They form an integral part of Dahomey's defense system, ready to fight alongside men when the kingdom's survival is at stake. Together, the Ahosi and the women form a formidable force, a testament to the martial prowess of Dahomey and the equality that existed between men and women in this kingdom. We end our journey in the bustling heart of the kingdom, witnessing the marriage of tradition and power in the coronation ceremony. As the king takes his place on the throne, a new reality is unveiled. The fusion of spiritual sanctity and political authority is palpable. This isn't just a ceremony, it's a profound statement of the king's divinity. Surrounded by his loyal Ahosi and the adoring populace, the king becomes the living embodiment of Dahomey's soul. He is the focal point of power, the epicenter of tradition. The ceremony itself is a grand spectacle. The use of masks, costumes, and regalia transforms the mundane into the sacred. It's a visual feast, a celebration of heritage and a declaration of unity. The people, adorned in their finest attire, united in their devotion, become an integral part of this grand tapestry of tradition. As the ceremony reaches its crescendo, one thing becomes abundantly clear. The king isn't just a ruler, he's a symbol, a beacon of Dahomey's cultural brilliance and enduring legacy. The palaces of Dahomey were not only places of ceremony and splendor. Behind their tall clay walls, under the red earth floors and the watchful eyes of carved idols, they were also stages of rivalry, where whispers could become daggers and loyalty was often a mask that hid ambition. The king stood at the center of this web, but even he could not silence the currents of intrigue that flowed around him. Every court had its factions. The warriors of the Amazons sought influence against the chiefs of men. Advisors who managed trade competed with priests who guarded the ancestors' secrets. Brothers, cousins, and distant kin carried the weight of their bloodlines. Each waited for an opening. Each nurtured quiet rivalries. In Dahomey, power was not simply inherited. It had to be guarded, defended, and displayed, daily and with care. So let us take a seat with our host, breathe in the smoke of 1,000 stories, and listen to the whispers from the Shadow Palace. There are moments in the life of a kingdom when ambition and fate align, when the past gives way to the new, and the old order seems poised to tumble down, making room for something different, something bolder. Such a moment had come to Dahomey. King Tegbasu had ruled with wisdom and strength. But now the reins of power would pass to his son, a young king facing not only the weight of tradition, but also the intricate game of loyalties and rivalries that defined their world. In the grand theatre of the royal palace, where power was both a game and a performance, the king was the star. Around him, a cast of characters, each seeking their moment in the spotlight. There were the Amazons, fierce warriors whose loyalty to the king was legendary, yet whose influence extended beyond the battlefield. Their leader, the henchwoman, held the ear of the young king, whispering strategies, not only for war, but for the intricate dance of courtly life. Then there were the chiefs, men of influence and wealth, their power anchored by age-old customs that dictated respect and obedience. Their voices echoed in the great hall, shaping decisions and guarding traditions. But the king was the conductor of this orchestra, ensuring that no instrument drowned out the other, keeping the harmony, or at least the semblance of it, within the court. And yet, harmony was a rare melody in the court of Dahomey. Underneath the vibrant tapestries and the murmur of polite conversation, rivalries simmered, waiting for a spark. The priests of the serpent and the ancestors watched with cool eyes, their allegiance to the spiritual realm giving them a detachment that many envied. They wove their own agendas into the fabric of tradition, manipulating threads of faith and custom to suit their purposes. But let us zoom in on two figures, cousins brought together by duty and separated by ambition. The first is the heir apparent, groomed for power since birth, his every move guided by the expectations of a kingdom. The second is the younger cousin, his path less certain, perhaps a general carving his glory on the battlefield, or a trader navigating the perilous seas to distant lands in search of fortune. Both men navigate the labyrinth of courtly life with grace and cunning. Yet, between them, a silent rivalry festers, nurtured by whispers and half-glances. It is a rivalry born not of malice, but of circumstance. Both men are products of the same system, each playing by the rules laid down by tradition. Theirs is a competition by a different set of standards, a contest of skills and strategies that have little to do with the bonds of kinship. For, in the world of the Fon people, loyalty was a currency as valuable as gold, and ambition, like a river, always found a way to carve its path. Now, let's pan over to another part of the palace, where a council is in session. The king sits on his throne, an image of authority. Below him, the chiefs, each representing a segment of the kingdom, discuss matters of trade, war, or succession. Their voices, though sometimes discordant, form a chorus of governance. The king listens, weighing not just their words, but the implications, the hidden agendas, the loyalties and rivalries that color their discourse. He is a judge of character, an arbiter of power, ensuring that the scales of justice and tradition remain balanced. But let's focus on the details, those subtle gestures and veiled threats that reveal the undercurrents of the council. The younger cousin, a general, speaks passionately about a recent victory, his words echoing with the bravado of the battlefield. His elder cousin, the heir apparent, nods politely, but his silence speaks volumes. He knows that the king's favor is fickle and a single misstep could cost him his birthright. So he waits, letting the general bask in the spotlight, knowing that the sun will set on that glory as surely as it does every day. Patience, however, is a virtue that has its limits. Let's shift to the marketplace now, the beating heart of the city where merchants from distant lands converge, bringing with them not just exotic goods, but also rumors and news from beyond the borders. Here, the air is thick with the scent of spices and the murmur of a dozen different languages. Amidst the crush of humanity, the younger cousin, the trader, thrives. His knowledge of foreign tongues, his ability to navigate treacherous seas, and his instinct for profitable trade make him a force to be reckoned with. With each successful voyage, his wealth grows, and with it, so does his influence at court. He returns laden with treasures, not just silks and ivory, but also with tales of daring escapes and shrewd negotiations. As he recounts these adventures, it's hard not to see the parallel between his journey and the challenges of courtly life. Both require courage, wit, and a willingness to take risks. And the trader excels in all of these, much to the silent envy of his cousin, the heir apparent. However, as the trader's star rises, the heir apparent remembers that in the game of courtly ambition, fortune is as fleeting as the wind. The rivalry between the cousins is more than skin deep. It's a clash of ambition, circumstance, and the relentless pursuit of power. For in the world of the Fon people, where the line between brilliance and ruin is razor thin, everyone plays a role, whether they know it or not. Some seek glory on the battlefield, others in the council chambers or the markets. And some, well, they wait in the shadows, ready to strike when the time is right. As the sun sets over Dahomey, casting long shadows across the palace walls, we find ourselves in the audience chamber where the king receives envoys and dignitaries from neighboring kingdoms. The air is thick with incense as the visitors, resplendent in their finery, lay down their gifts and deliver messages from distant rulers. The king listens with a composed expression, though his sharp eyes betray his thoughts. He, too, is a player in this intricate game of diplomacy, balancing alliances and rivalries to protect the interests of his kingdom. But let's turn our attention to two figures watching from the sidelines, the Amazonian commander and the young king. The Amazon, battle-hardened and stoic, represents the military might of Dahomey, her presence a constant reminder of the cost of war. The young king, still wet behind the ears, observes this intricate dance of power with keen interest. He sees the subtle gestures, the veiled threats, the calculated niceties that color diplomatic discourse. As the evening progresses, the Amazon leans closer to the young king, whispering insights only she can provide, bridging the gap between the rawness of youth and the complexities of statecraft. She speaks not just of battles on the battlefield, but of the subtler wars of diplomacy and the importance of choosing one's allies wisely. The young king listens, soaking in her wisdom, understanding that the true test of leadership lies not just in military prowess, but in the ability to navigate the treacherous waters of international relations. Yet, even in this safe haven of diplomacy, the spectre of rivalry casts its shadow. The Amazon and the king share a bond of loyalty and trust, but their positions are inherently at odds. She represents the sword, he the scepter. And in the delicate balance of power, one must always be cautious. As the king matures, he will need to strike a balance between the pragmatics of war and the necessity of maintaining peace. For in the world of the Fon people, where survival hinges on the ability to project power and secure alliances, the line between victory and defeat can be as thin as the king's patience. And as the night deepens, our story deepens with it. We move from the bustling marketplace to the hushed chambers of the palace library, where scrolls and manuscripts hold not just knowledge, but secrets. In this hallowed space, the air thick with the scent of aged papyrus, the young king sits cross-legged, poring over ancient texts. The words may be faded, the inks blurred with age, but the wisdom they contain is as sharp and relevant as if written yesterday. His gaze, intense and curious, scans the pages, seeking not just historical accounts, but lessons for the future. Each scroll is a roadmap to the past, each faded line a guidepost for his journey as king. As he reads, the memories of past rulers come alive, their triumphs and failures echoing in the stillness of the library. Beside him sits the librarian, an elderly priest, his face a map of time etched with wrinkles of wisdom. He is more than a keeper of books. He is a living archive, his memory a treasure trove of lore and lineage. As the young king reads, the librarian offers commentary, weaving historical accounts with oral traditions and personal anecdotes, bringing the past into focus. But let's shift our focus slightly to the shadows in the corner of the library. Hidden there, unseen by the king, is a spy, his gaze intent, his posture rigid. He is here not to learn, but to observe, listening intently to the dialogue between the king and the librarian. His mission, to report back to the court, where every word carries weight and every piece of information is a potential weapon. And so the young king studies his ancestors, learning not just about their reigns, but also the art of rulership, the pitfalls of ambition, and the responsibilities of power. The library becomes his battleground, where the weapons of war are traded for the swords of knowledge. What if the greatest battles aren't fought with swords and shields, but with scrolls and secrets? We have walked together through the narrow courtyards of Dahomey's palaces. We have marched with weary foot soldiers, felt the discipline of warriors, and listened to the drums that guided ritual and sacrifice. We have stood beside Queen Hangbi and her Amazons, fierce and unyielding, and we have watched the spectacle of annual customs, half political theatre, half sacred rite. Dahomey was not a simple kingdom. It was a place of paradox, a realm that celebrated ceremony yet lived by the sword, that elevated women into warriors yet bound captives into chains, that built dazzling palaces even as intrigue gnawed at their walls. It was both sanctuary and storm, and as our journey nears its end, let us pause to contemplate the legacy of this extraordinary kingdom. What truths have we uncovered about Dahomey? What fragments of its spirit still linger in our minds? What echoes of its past resonate within us? Perhaps it's the haunting melodies of the Agonzi drums echoing the heartbeat of a nation. Or maybe it's the sight of the royal palaces, vibrant testaments to a glorious past. Each of us carries a piece of Dahomey within, a souvenir of a realm that thrived on the crossroads of tradition and change. Remember the skilled artisans who transformed metal into intricate designs, their hammers ringing with creativity. Recall the traders who navigated the bustling markets, their voices bargaining for exotic wares. And how can we forget the warriors, their courage as blazing as the sun, defending the kingdom's borders with unwavering valor. Yet Dahomey was not merely about triumphs and accolades. It was a place where life unfolded in all its complexities. Within these mighty walls, ordinary people went about their daily lives, their hopes and dreams as timeless as the stars. They loved, they laughed, they grieved, they celebrated, creating a tapestry of experiences that made this kingdom truly come alive. But, as with all chapters of history, the final page has been sealed. The kingdom's last breath was a sigh of smoke curling into the twilight sky. Its vibrant hues have faded into the soft palette of memory. Yet the story doesn't end here. For every sunset is followed by a sunrise. Every ending is a prelude to a new beginning. Let's look up towards the heavens. The sky above Dahomey is a vast canvas of stars, each twinkling a tale of a bygone era. As we stand beneath this celestial panorama, let us remember that history is not just about dates and dynasties. It's about the countless lives that flickered like these distant stars, each one a testament to the enduring spirit of humanity. We've journeyed back in time to the 18th century, a period when Dahomey stood as an emblem of African grandeur. Now let's fast forward to today. How does the memory of Dahomey live on in the present? What threads of its rich legacy can be found in contemporary life? Perhaps it's in the resilience of the people, their ability to adapt and thrive amidst challenges. Maybe it's in the art, the music, or the vibrant festivals that keep the spirit of Dahomey alive. Let us now return to the ruins of Dahomey, where the whispers of history mingle with the rustle of the wind. The palace walls, though weathered by time, still stand as silent sentinels guarding secrets of a glorious past. As we explore these remnants of a bygone era, let us remember that every crack in the walls, every moss-covered stone, is a story waiting to be told. These ruins are not just crumbling structures, they are vessels of memories that have endured for centuries. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine yourself transported back in time. You are now in the bustling heart of Dahomey. The air is alive with the murmur of merchants, The vibrant colors of the marketplace assault your senses. And then you hear it, a rhythmic pulse that seems to emanate from the very earth. It's the sound of life lived to the fullest, of a community bound together by shared experiences and traditions. Here, within these ancient walls, ordinary moments were extraordinary. The clink of tools in the blacksmith shop, the soothing croon of a mother to her child, the laughter of friends sharing tales over a game of Go. Each sound weaves a tapestry of life, reminding us that history is not just about empires and conquests, but about the everyday lives of ordinary people. And as we continue our journey through the ruins of Dahomey, let us carry this realization in our hearts. History is all around us, waiting to be discovered, understood, and cherished. So as you walk among these ancient stones, let your imagination run wild. Breathe in the sense of a bygone era. Listen to the echoes of laughter and conversation, and feel the vibrant energy of a kingdom that once thrived here. Let the spirit of Dahomey envelop you, reminding you that the past is never truly gone. It's a living, breathing part of who we are. Now, let us take a final look around. The sun begins its slow descent, casting long shadows across the ruins. The sky above Dahomey transforms into a canvas of vibrant hues, a fitting backdrop for a kingdom that knew no bounds in its creativity and spirit. Thank you for joining us on this journey through time. If you found this adventure in history captivating, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and like this video. Your support means the world to us and inspires us to bring more fascinating tales to life. Until next time, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and never stop seeking out the hidden gems of our shared past. You are now under baobab skies.